Hey everybody, this is Maureen. Um, I happened to come across this book at a used bookstore nearby, and I wanted to kind of share it with you because I've noticed that I've been looking at things with a vintage aesthetic, and sometimes it's hard to find household or needlework items that may necessarily fit a particular look. And I don't tend to review books too often, and most books I buy are on a small limited print run and are very specific of historical nature. This one is a little bit more broad, and I could see there being several applications for this book. They kind of give you a nice vintage aesthetic here. And what impressed me the most is that they went over several different techniques in this book. So you have everything from vintage sewing to quilting. They do other forms of needlecraft. And they even give you lots of patterns in here. So there is just very light research points here and there throughout the book. So if you're looking at something for a particular time frame, you may have to possibly alter the pattern or some of the materials based on the time frame you're working from. I've noticed that this book would be a general way of getting started. But this would be a very good start for somebody who wanted to get into something, let's say like history bounding, for example, but you haven't purchased anything or haven't found things that fit a particular time frame or aesthetic, but you want something that looks vintage. This would be the book for you. Specifically, they have this great thread and tool keeper for sewing items. And it gives the instructions on what you need. It gives a minor pattern and the measurements for it. And it goes through it step by step, giving instructions. They have one here made out of a baby shoe for making a pin cushion. And the instructions on it. Making other kinds of vintage pin cushions. Goes into fabric tuffets, making those from pieces of old clothing or trim. There's a pillow pattern. And it even gives you what stitches they're using, which was pretty nice actually. I was really greatly surprised by this little book. It talks about how to do a pin tuck and what that is, which you see on a lot of dresses and underclothing at certain time frames. It gives more specialized projects and the patterns to do them, which I'm impressed that you get the step-by-step instructions along with a drawn-out pattern that you can convert. And with patterns like this, what I like is that you can not necessarily use it on just the project they are designing it for. You can use it for other applications when they give you the pattern. There's an apron. There was the sundress prior there. There's a little smock, like a little smock dress. And I like that they give more than one kind of pin cushion. Like you have the cloth ones back there, you have these felt ones, and then they give you two different kinds of it, like one's the flower and one's the little bags. They're giving you lots of options. And yet again, the patterns that you can trace right on the fabric with the instructions. But also you're getting technique differences. You're getting some sewing, you're getting some quilting. And then the projects they're providing are things that are storage that also provide an aesthetic that you could easily have around the house. And something like this, you could use this pattern over and over again with different beading pieces, and you could get a different looking purse every single time. Let's see. Tap, trap, boudoir envelope. Okay. I'll be making this fabric piece right there. And then the pattern yet again. Let's see. They talk about doing vintage kitchen items, which I could easily see doing like placemats and napkin holders. They have this wonderful one, which is a knitting needle keeper, and I was thinking to myself, well, you could do more than just the knitting needles. They have, you could definitely do crochet hooks or other tools like lace bobbins. You can make a bobbin keeper. It's a great general pattern that you could use many different applications and a couple different things. Let's see, there's a little bag there. And just all sorts of aesthetic. This is just awesome. And then they give you the patterns for the bag and how to arrange it. Goes into vintage needlework and some applications for that. And it even gives something like this you could trace and put it on a iron-on situation to do needlework that way. I'm just amazed with how much content this book has and projects to do. You could follow the books and you could follow the projects that are in the book easily and have some great stuff. But you can easily take these basic patterns and use them in other applications too. That's really pretty. Ribbon work here. Ribbon embroidery is what this one would be. And it gives you the pattern to follow yet again. You have the ribbon embroidery on the top, and then it does embroidery along the side. That would make a great, if you weren't going to use it for a keeper of other items, if you make this big enough, that could be a hat box. Think of it that way. You change up some of the measurements on the pattern, you do everything exactly the same, and it could be big enough to put a hat inside instead. And it even shows you how to do the ribbon embroidery, so it turns out nice. It's another keepsake box. These would make great gifts too. If you're like me and you like to make handmade gifts, this could be something you could easily follow just the book variety if you wanted, or take the basic pattern and you could take it to a whole new different level. Because designs and patterns are really useful, and you can apply them in several different ways beyond what has been instructed in the book. But I like the fact that you could easily make the projects from the book, besides maybe making up your own. I mean, they even charted this. They graphed this out so you could cross-stitch it. I mean, that takes time. And they based that on a particular pattern, and they even gave the year back there. They have old ones like this too here. Talks about doing the stitches and what stitches you're using, which this is nice to see. And then even, there's images of items in here that aren't all in the book, but you could easily find ways of charting it out. It even talks about how to take the patterns from the book and use them. So it gives you instructions on doing that too. And, and a conversion chart, which is always useful too. So, yeah, Sewing Vintage Style by Mary Jo Hinney would be a really good beginner book if you're into history bounding. to kind of get your feet wet with some very general projects to follow step by step that have a vintage feel, and then you've kind of dipped your toes into something historical, and then you can take it back to the time frame that you want, maybe beyond Victorian. I would say this is a lot of 20th century kind of needlework that you're seeing here, but a good starting point, and it gives you projects to do, which is fantastic. I'm hoping to get a few more videos on my channel, and hoping also to do a few more book reviews of books that I found useful. This is not a sponsored video for the author or anything like that, but more informational for people to find ways of being able to get the information that they need. If you like this kind of video and information, please check out some of my other videos that I have, and if you like, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.